forms part of the crop of pioneer freedom fighters, men and women who were focused, resolved in their determination to free Namibia at any cost. He did not only live for greener pastures like seeking education. His number one commitment was to carry the gun and fight the enemy, and indeed he did, until at some point the leaders realized he needed some sharpening through training.
Very much so. And of course, post-independence Namibia, his contributions to an independent and free Namibia?
Yes, like many of his time, the heroes and heroines, veterans of the liberation struggle, he formed part of the state machinery in terms of forming a new government, joined the Namibia Defense Forces. You will recall the Defense Forces of Namibia was formed from different hitherto warring parties.
Yes.
And they were the fathers that molded the reconciliated defense forces of the country.
Very much so. You know how the name Commander Zulu came about?
Yes, Commander Zulu, this name came from the first defense minister of Zambia, Grey Zulu, who was a very tough man, resolved in action. You will recall that during that time, the apartheid South Africa had turned the entire frontline state territory into a war zone, and Grey Zulu was very much in the forefront of confronting the South African forces as they were bombing all frontline states, almost all frontline states, tracing combatants of the Mkondo Wesizwe, plan combatants and other combatants from the Zimbabwe Liberation Army. And then Grey Zulu became the role model for Commander Zulu.
And that's how he adopted
That's how he adopted that name.
All right. Of course, Mr. Ua-Ndjarakana, we've learned that the president has conferred a state funeral on the late Colonel Nandenga. And we know that, of course, he retired, I believe, in 2008 as a colonel at the time. Perhaps you can speak to us, for the sake of our viewers, what a state funeral for a military official of this rank would look like here.
Not only a military official, Commander Zulu, as the name denotes, he did not become a commander in the contemporary Namibian Defense Force, but a commander of a front during the armed liberation struggle. And it is given that President Hage Geingob could confer on him the hero's status with a state funeral, with the president becoming the chief mourner, joined by the family, the widow, children, and other family members.
Yes.
And that goes with 3 days of national mourning, the lowering of flags at half-mast,
yes,
and a full military complement, and other related salutation dictates.
Very much so. How well advanced would you say are preparations for the memorial and funeral services here?
Well, the National Preparatory Committee, chaired by the Secretary to Cabinet, has its ground troops or cadres on the ground at both the site of memorial service, yes, on Friday evening, and at the Nana Shrine in Ohangwena region, in Oshikoto and Ohangwena region respectively. So we are tuned to the task.
All right. So on Friday, the memorial will take place at Ontananga in the Oshikoto region, yes?
Yes.
And then on Saturday, the burial will take
place.
Yes,
at the Nana National Shrine.
Fantastic. Now, Mr. Ua-Ndjarakana, we've seen many reports in our local media about, the alleged neglect of, war veterans, so to say. We often see, that a lot of them have not been given the necessary treatment post-independence, so to say. A lot of them, or either a lot of them have only been awarded with housing or any other support, well into their old age, etc. What does the government have to say about this alleged neglect of liberation stalwarts, so to say?
Firstly, as I have indicated earlier, the veterans of the struggle were the ones who formed the independent government of Namibia. Their preoccupation was securing peace and stability. You will recall that even the act responsible for Veterans Affairs came later in the life of an independent Namibia, because that was the collective result position of the veterans of the struggle. And that being the case, the first steps in the referred act could not complete the whole composition of ensuring that veterans are catered for to the fullest desired level. It's work in progress. Most of the veterans that were in office, either in the military or in other formations of the state, partook in the crafting of the Veterans Act. And it was okay at the time. It is work in progress. Amendments are made to laws. There is no deliberate neglect because there is no policy to that effect. But no celebration that our veterans are living lives as they do. There is need for improvement. You will recall that during the president's town halls, he indicated to varied Namibian demands that as the ruling party and government, they have heard the calls and cries of various constituencies of the nation. And therefore, it's part of that collective determination to improve the lot, both for the veterans and for everybody else in society.
Just interestingly enough, you mentioned that this is a work in progress. 31 years after independence, you not feel that there's a need for urgency, considering that time is not on the side of many of these veterans here?
There are countries and nations that have had a life for 100 years. We are only 31 years, and we have made the progress we have made. And therefore, we cannot mourn and condemn ourselves to hell and say we have not done enough. We have done good for the time of our existence, and that's why it is work in progress, and we are determined to make those improvements.
Very much so. Another issue is when it comes to these conferred official and state funerals, especially with the advent of COVID-19, we've seen a violation of some of the COVID-19 regulations. We've seen it at the memorial and burial service, of the late Governor Cleophas Musravicwa, with the official funeral conferred on the late Alex Caputo as well. Fairly large number of crowds at these gatherings. What does the government have to say once again to this year?
As government, we are keeping, for instance, we are arranging chairs for 100 mourners at the memorial service and at the burial service. We are settling on our PA system capacity so that we have a PA system that only beams to 100 persons. We are doing everything possible to ensure that we lead by example as government, and we urge mourners everywhere in the country to respect the protocols on COVID-19, because we have all experienced how COVID-19 has taken a toll in our families, in our communities.
Very much, yeah.
And therefore, it's not a game, it's not something that anybody would wish to challenge the authority or the regulations to contravene them. We must respect and obey those regulations. We appeal to communities that are mourning their beloved ones to really heed the call for observing the 100 persons gathering for mourning, for vigils, and social distancing, sanitation, and all the related disciplines.
Very much so. Any final remarks from you this morning, Mr. Ua-Ndjarakana?
The final remarks is that for those of us who remain, we should continue taking over from where our heroes and heroines are living when they fall, when they are recalled upstairs. For the good work they have done should not be in vain.
Very much so. Thank you so much for being here this morning, sir, and sharing on the legacy of the late Commander Zulu.
Thank you.